Oh, drat. I was driving along minding my own business when that vulgar leech hit my Beamer with his pickup truck. I fear I've fractured my clavicle.
I say, old boy, don't simply put it in the hands of your insurance company to sort it out. Talk with the dedicated road solicitors at the Advocates Law Firm.
Pipe down, you old sod. The Advocates will see your case through to the bitter end and won't sleep a fortnight until they have victory in their grasp.
Jolly good, old man. Jolly good indeed. You get injured, the Advocates get results. AdvocatesLaw.com.
This podcast is brought to you by the Washington State Department of Health. When we think about the COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy in the Black community, let's remember, it didn't happen by chance. It's justified in history. But the will to change the narrative is strong today, and our people are lending their voices to the conversation. We're sharing our stories and the reasons that made us choose the vaccine so we can lead the way for others to make a well-informed choice too. To hear our stories, visit hereforuswa.org.
Hey, it's Miles. Thank you guys for listening to the Men's Room Daily Podcast.
Have you heard our newest podcast? It's called The Greatest Story Never Told.
Download it today on radio.com. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes are uploaded every Tuesday at noon.
Unfortunately, what you're about to hear is real. The members of this radio program are simply not that bright, or what some people would call educated. They are merely stupid. They're not trying to offend anyone on purpose. And all have played doctors on TV. You have been warned and are cordially invited to join the party. This is the Men's Room.
Forget it, man, and get with the countdown. Get with the countdown. Shake this square world and blast off for Kicksville. The trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
This is the Men's Room with Miles and Thrill. You know what they say, shake your radio more than 3 times, and you're playing with it. You're listening to the Men's Room.
And away we go. Welcome to season 15 and episode number 3,312. Along with Steve the Thrill Hill, D10 Smith, and Mike Hawk. Montgomery! And you are the Men's Room. On tap today, the return of Who Sucks Less. We will play Profile This. Plus headlines, the Men's Room Shot of the Day, fun with listener emails, and everyone's favorite, TV Time with Ted. Click, click! Drinking drunk. All right, here we go. A new survey says that hungry men like big boobs and they cannot lie.
I'm starving.
Meanwhile, the Michigan morgue is investigated after a penis cake shoots icing in someone's eye. New Mexico is apparently shocked that their medical dispensaries are selling so much weed. A tall leprechaun looting cars is what the residents of Buffalo did not need. And a reporter in Australia accidentally says F my life on the air. And people agree. That is all coming on today's very special episode of The Men's Room.
And now, here's the question.
Hola, bitches. Good day to you and yours. All right, there's a very popular and very true saying that I'll clean up for the airwaves, but it goes something like this. Poop happens, except we don't say poop. The point is we only say that when something goes wrong. It's never a positive statement, but it has always been and will always be true. That's why I say, I don't know, people find themselves stuck on an uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean. Seriously, 3 men were rescued from a deserted island earlier this week after they were reported missing. And I don't know anyone personally who has been marooned on a deserted island. I do, however, know plenty of people that have been trapped in an elevator. But not because an alligator was waiting for them on the other side of the door, but that just happened in Florida because Florida is Florida. And because, like I said, poop happens. But hell, a man getting married, he's just about to exchange vows with his bride when another woman crashed the wedding, announcing that she was the mother of his child. We'll play you the audio a little bit later, but just know that it made the wedding memorable. Maybe not the best memory, but look, sometimes the damnedest thing happens to you. Sometimes it's good, a lot of times it's bad. But today we want you to share the story that answers this question. What's the damnedest thing that's happened to you?
Be part of the big show. Call 206-421-ROCK. Like the Men's Room on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Men's Room Live. Text 77999 and send those emails to the Men's Room at KISW.com.
Well, great balls of fire, Bubba.
What happened, Buford?
That crazy son of a Sal blew right through that four-way stop on Main Street and plowed into my cowboy Cadillac.
Your what?
My pickup truck. And I'm pretty sure my leg is broken, Ted.
Oh, quit your bitching, Buford, and talk with those side busters at the Advocates Law Firm. When I got busted up last month, well, shoot, they made sure those snakes at the insurance company played fair.
Boy, howdy. Even that creepy so-and-so Kyle earned his keep.
So if you get injured, the advocates get results. AdvocatesLaw.com.
This podcast is brought to you by the Washington State Department of Health. When we think about the COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy in the Black community, let's remember, it didn't happen by chance. It's justified in history. But the will to change the narrative is strong today, and our people are lending their voices to the conversation. We're sharing our stories and the reasons that made us choose the vaccine so we can lead the way for others to make a well-informed choice too. To hear our stories, visit hereforuswa.org.
The debauchery rolls on. You're listening to The Men's Room with Miles and Thrill. 99.9 KISW.
Ooh! So scary. I'm so scared right now. All the Jones, away we go. Welcome to season 15, episode number 3,312. What a large and in charge program we have for you today. We promise we won't scare you anymore. This is a guaranteed future repeat as once again the exciting return of Who Sucks Less. And I understand that today's three stories involve people who want to kill people. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, all three stories take place in my hometown of Baltimore, where if you were murdered, they just label it natural causes. So, yeah, it should not be that shocking. But, yeah, there were threats of murder.
Okay, all right. That's coming up with Who Sucks Less. And today we're going to talk about the damnedest thing that's happened to you. Now, as you said earlier, Steve, sometimes this stuff is a positive thing. Sometimes it's a negative thing. Sometimes things are, you don't think they're going to work out. Then all of a sudden, bam, you know what I mean? It's.
But you never get those stories. Like, the damnedest thing that might happen to you is that you won the lottery, but it is unlikely that that is the damnedest thing that's happened to you.
And when you read stories in the news, some of them you kind of gravitate toward more than others. I'm one of those people who anytime there's a shark attack or something like that going down, I'm all over those types of stories for sure. Anytime something happens in Australia, I just know that based on Australia, it's going to be about 10 times the size or 10 times the magnitude of anything here in North America.
You nailed it earlier. We were talking to a coworker, and you said, look, Australia, take anything bad. We're talking about animal attacks. And this guy was talking about something that happened in Florida. And I said, well, the only other place could be Australia. And Miles, you said, look, Australia is like Florida on steroids when it comes to nature looking to attack you, right?
Yep. We start today with the story that's one of those that just gravitates my way, and it's about three men who were marooned in the Pacific, and they were rescued after writing SOS in the sand. Now, this goes back to my childhood. This is one of those.
What?
It does. Like being marooned on an island, like who was it? Was it Robinson? Who was it?
Gilligan?
Swiss Family
Lord of the Flies?
All of them. I mean, it was like quicksand. You know what I mean? Somebody's marooned on an island, the most popular show on television. You got a whole bunch of people who
But
are
Gilligan
marooned
was
on
fine. They were okay.
But they were marooned.
Lord of the Flies. Yeah, Lord of the Flies.
realize?
I remember reading that. What was it? Is it Swiss Family Robinson Crusoe? I don't know
Somebody
which one.
like that.
I don't know their story. I just know they were there, but the little bits I remember from childhood, all I remember, and maybe we both saw the same thing, we just took different elements. I was like, they have a badass treehouse. Like, that looked fun.
And SOS, I mean, we know that to be the thing. Like, no matter what, it seems like if you're lost in the woods or if you're on a deserted island, you know what I mean? If you can just write a big enough SOS.
But what disaster made that the universal call
Well, that's
sign?
what I'm saying. It'd have to be 1917, right?
The Titanic.
Yeah, or whenever that was, 19-something in there.
12.
12?
1912.
Okay. Yeah. And it started
Early
on
1900s.
Save our ship. And guess what? The first time they did that did not work.
Well, because there was all these different signals you could send out, so nobody knew what they meant.
But SOS,
Now we know. After the Titanic sank and Leonardo DiCaprio froze to death in the water, they said, we need a universal way.
But this is a story where if you told someone, they would be like, oh, my God, this is unbelievable.
Would
It's
you
the damnedest
believe,
thing.
if one of these guys told you this story at the bar, would you believe?
Would I believe them?
Yeah, I would not.
I would believe them only because it would be news around the world.
Okay, all right.
So in that instance, I truly believe, like for an example, okay, we had the young kid who was 17, 18 years old. I think she's up on 2, and her car ran out of gas, okay? Now, they couldn't find this kid for
8 or 9 days.
3
Oh,
or
yeah,
4
for a
days
while.
go by, and you're thinking the worst, like, okay.
Yes, you
this-
think the worst when
this-
you disappear into the woods.
Well, this young woman ran out of gas, and then you figure, well, maybe she started walking, toward a gas station or whatever. And my God, we all know there's a reason that Ted's sometimes scared of the woods. I mean, there's crazy people out there. We all know that.
He's also seen bears, man.
I know that, but the people are the scary part. Like, look, man, ask anyone who's ever hiked the Appalachian or the Pacific Coast Trail. It's not the elements, it's the people.
Sure.
That's what you got to worry about. You got to worry about the jackamos that are out there also for whatever. There are some people who are hiking.
Deliverance.
There's some people who are
Say deliverance.
Right,
Honest
exactly.
to God, that movie ruined it for Jaws terrified people of sharks.
Mm-hmm.
Most shark species will not attack a human being, but Jaws has convinced us, and me still, that every shark will kill you and rip you apart.
Yeah.
Deliverance did that. It almost ruined camping for people.
Mm-hmm. Look, man, I
Thank you, Ned Beatty.
And I wasn't kidding about it. There's another story in Oregon today about a guy from Eureka, California, who drove up just out of his mind and started crashing into all these cars. And he ends up in Coos Bay. And that's where I was telling you, man, like, you look white people in the eye there and you want to leave. You're like, oh, God, get me out of here, man. This is a creepy, scary place. So they show a picture of this dude who's responsible for hitting 29 cars.
Jeez.
And it's exactly what you think he is. Like, you do not want to run into this guy on the trail. Same thing holds true for this young woman. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking. The worst possible scenario. Turns out she got lost 8 days later. They find her. 8 days later. That, to me, is the best news you could ever have. The most amazing story.
No, the best news you could ever have.
You would ever have
is
that ending to that.
Your daughter did not get lost in the woods.
Correct.
But I guess the second best news is, yes, we found your daughter alive.
And granted, she's the same age as my kid. So when I
Right.
look at these stories, I relate it to me, like everybody does.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I'm thinking to myself, if that was my kid, I would be losing my mind. I would be looking for pickup trucks. You know what I mean? I'd be looking.
You're
for
looking for people. You're not even looking for
yeah.
your daughter. You're looking
No,
for
I'm
that
not-
creepy-looking
no,
son of a bitch.
I'm not going out and looking in the woods. I'm going out looking who's got 8 cars parked in front of their house, who has never traded in an automobile in their life, who just keeps them parked out in the front, who's got 15 tractors and 3 of them work. That's the kind of place I'm looking at. You know what I mean? And then I'm going to go knock on the door and go, hey, man, have you? And they shut the door in my face. Get out. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's the guy right there. That's what I'm thinking. But these guys.
Turns out she was just lost, though.
She was just lost. I mean, I would never go on a trail
Because she's in the woods.
Because I don't think that's the likely scenario. You know what I mean? I'm thinking to myself, Cooter's got her. You know what I mean? Or whatever. One of these dudes.
I seen her earlier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. At least these guys got lucky last weekend. 3 men whose small boat had run out of fuel drifted off course among the hundreds of islands and atolls in Micronesia. The men, said to be mariners from the Micronesian island of Pulap, were reported missing on Friday after setting off for home. They were about 25 miles away from their destination a day earlier. In a joint operation, aircraft were dispatched by the American authorities in Guam. We're learning so much more about Guam.
I
What
know.
they're responsible for doing. Not only that, but a ship was sent by the Australian military. They combed the area. Then on Sunday afternoon, one of the American aircraft was finishing the final leg of the day's patrol when crew members looked down and saw SOS scrawled across the beach, and the blue and white vessel on the tiny atoll was upside down. They dumped the boat.
Turns out it was just Sting sending a message in a bottle.
The pilot of the aircraft said he was reaching the end of the planned search grid when he turned the plane to avoid a rain shower. He wasn't even going over there. He was just banking to get out of a cloud. That's when we looked down and saw an island, so we decided to check it out, and that's when we saw SOS in the boat right next to it on the beach. An Australian reconnaissance helicopter later delivered food and water to the marooned men before a vessel picked them up on Monday and took them back home. Authorities said the men's 23-long boat had drifted off course after it ran out of fuel. Eventually, it reached this place about 118 miles west of their departure point. The captain, the commanding officer of the Australian military ship that helped search the area, said, "I'm proud of the response, professionalism of all on board, as we fulfill an obligation to contribute to the safety of life at sea wherever we are in the world." And the SOS definitely helped, and it
That's
helped
why
to
they
save
wrote
the
it.
guy. Yeah. Writing in huge letters, by the way, in sand has proved helpful to travelers stranded in the Pacific in the past. In 2016, 3 men whose boat was overturned in Asian waters swam 2 miles to reach a tiny island from which they were rescued by a U.S. Coast Guard after writing help in the sand. This isn't the set of Castaway, the U.S. Coast Guard said at the time, in reference to the movie with Tom Hanks. Later that year, 2 other people who had been missing for a week were rescued from another Micronesian island after they wrote SOS in the sand. This is apparently the thing to do if you're listening to this program. If you ever get lost at sea, write SOS in the sand and hope there's no high tide.
The other ones wrote help. I
did.
would always go SOS because, like, if you don't speak English, I don't know that you know what help means.
Yeah.
SOS is universal. That's my point.
Now, did you see
Yeah.
photos?
What about starting the fire? Put some smoke up.
That's another one you could do. Sure.
Actually, these guys, what's crazy about that story is they were there for 3 days. I don't want to say only 3 days, because if you don't know if you're getting rescued, I'm sure it's very long. But they built a pretty remarkable shelter in those 3 days.
They did.
I mean, it was amazing. It would have taken me like a month and a half to do that.
Right.
I have no desire to be marooned on an island.
Oh, really? You don't?
Nah.
So many people do.
Like if you walked
Miles
up,
is into
if
it.
you walked up to that place that they built, it looked like they're probably serving like Red Stripe, you know what I mean, out of a cooler, and maybe some pina coladas or something. I mean, like it looks like a little tiki hut on the beach there. There's nothing else on this.
It really does.
On this island, but it looks like it's like Bob's Coconut Bar. But they used that for shelter for a few nights. And they were rescued. Our question, what's the damnest thing that's happened to you? 206-421-ROCK. We have more, and this one took place at a wedding. Do you remember those?
Yeah. Well, I told you I just watched one on Facebook.
Yeah.
Don't look bitter, Mike. There's always an next year.
Have you guys been to a wedding where anything was completely a little bit off the rails?
No. I mean, reception is one thing, but it's always been a result of someone getting drunk, you're making bad decisions, things happen. But I mean, the wedding itself, no, I mean,
What you mean, like, was there drama during the wedding?
right,
or
the
was
wedding
yeah, whatever.
itself. I do remember, and this wasn't particularly dramatic. There were a limited number of people aware of this, but my buddy years ago got married, probably 25, 30 years ago. I'm one of his groomsmen. There's about 6 groommen, 6 bridesmaids. And it is a full-on Catholic Mass wedding. I had no idea how long these things lasted. But anyway, in like the hour and a half that were up there, somebody farted, and you couldn't hear it. All right? So it wasn't one of these audible things that disrupted the wedding. Mm-hmm. But as we're standing there, you get a whiff of this thing, and it is just thick, and it's not going anywhere. And now we're struggling not to laugh because we realize that nobody on the audience understands what's going on. We know it was one of the guys because we all kind of smelled it first. You do that quick eye shift. And then you see the pastor, the preacher, whatever, priest, whatever, is doing this thing. He looks visibly angry, but he doesn't want to stop the service. But he shoots us this really hard look. And I remember thinking to myself, how do you know it's us? It's not one of the bridesmaids, other than the fact that it's obvious that, and it was not me, by the way. And we never found out who did it. But then you could see it drift to the bridesmaids. And again, there's 6 of them. So it was like slowly knocking down dominoes. So the maid of honor, who's closest to you, you see her nose twitch a little bit, and then her eyes, angry as F, right? Just focus on all of us. And then the chick behind her eyes darted us angry as F. And I swear this fart stayed there for like 10 minutes, man. And it was awful, but you couldn't say anything. And because it's this full-on Catholic Mass wedding, most of the people out in the crowd, it's not one of those things you can say something funny or make them laugh. Like, if we say anything, like, it'll be really, really bad. Mm-hmm. So we just sat there and endured it. But the priest, basically, he tore us a new ass after the service. And we're just like, dude, somebody farted. I mean, we're there for an hour and a half. It happens, but it was ugly. But that's the most drama I've ever seen.
I have, it was probably, I was about 25 years old, 26 years old, and one of my buddies' best friends who kind of ran with us, he was around a lot, but he had a really serious girlfriend. He had this girlfriend from the time that he was about 18 years old. They were going to get married. So, yeah, I'm about 25 years old. And they were doing this huge bash. We knew where the park was. They were going to get married out there. You were supposed to, it was kind of a BYOB thing. They're young.
Cool.
We're going to a park. It's going to be a brief ceremony. And then after that, it's very casual. You wear whatever you want to. But for the most part, there's a lake out there. There's other things to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, we knew where this park was. We knew the time. This is also the time where you just had a landline phone in your home.
Right.
And I want to say the invitee list was about 250.
Well, great balls of fire, Bubba. What happened, Buford? That crazy son of a Sal blew right through that 4-way stop on Main Street and plowed into my cowboy Cadillac.
Your what?
My pickup truck. And I'm pretty sure my leg is broken, Ted.
Oh, quit your bitching, Buford, and talk with those side busters at the Advocates Law Firm. When I got busted up last month, well, shoot, they made sure those snakes at the insurance company played fair.
Boy, howdy. Even that creepy so-and-so Kyle earned his keep.
So if you get injured, the advocates get results. AdvocatesLaw.com.
This podcast is brought to you by the Washington State Department of Health. When we think about the COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy in the Black community, let's remember, it didn't happen by chance. It's justified in history. But the will to change the narrative is strong today, and our people are lending their voices to the conversation. We're sharing our stories and the reasons that made us choose the vaccine so we can lead the way for others to make a well-informed choice too. To hear our stories, visit hereforuswa.org.
300
Jesus.
people. So there are a lot of people going out there. It was a word of mouth thing. You know what I mean? If you want to bring stuff to grill, bring stuff to grill.
That's the best kind of wedding there is, Mike. Don't send out invitations. Just do word of mouth and see who shows up.
Well, basically, their family was going to be there and all those different things. But as far as the friend group was concerned, there was not going to be any formal serving of food or anything like that. It was like, look, man, there's tons of camping pits. There's tons of, grills out there that are hard into the pavilion and stuff. You can grill hot dogs. You can bring whatever you want. It's going to be an all-day party. The whole thing's going to go down. So we all pile in cars. We all go out there. It's about a 40-minute drive out in the middle of the sticks where this lake is. And we get to the front gate, and then we see somebody we know. And the guy says, hey, man, the wedding's off. And we said, What do you mean the wedding's off?
Wait, was everybody there?
All the cars that were pulling up were being told that the wedding's off. But we all have got this stuff. So we all have hot dogs, hot dog buns, cases of beer. We have bottles of alcohol. We're ready to rock. You know what I mean? So we just said, F it, and decided to go anyway. So there were about, 30, 40 people who just kind of celebrated what would have been their wedding, but they never showed up. And we also never found out exactly what happened.
To this day?
Well, I mean, there was speculation of what happened.
Of course there's speculation, but I mean, to this day, you still never found out.
Who called it off? We have a pretty good idea why it was called off.
Why do you think it was called off? What do you know that she wasn't supposed to know?
I think she found out something that was probably pretty close to the story that we're about to bring you on weddings, is what I understand it to be, but it was a coworker of his that had been going on for a while. Apparently, this was addressed at some point in time within 24 hours of the actual, at least 24 hours, because they would have called. I mean, they would have tried to, the guy I knew was best friends with him. The word would have spread a little bit faster.
Sure.
So that never got to the point. So we just kind of partied and we're thinking, well, maybe somebody will show up, and then nobody else showed up. So
what is the mood of the party? Like when you were there.
You guys just wanted a party.
We were going to party no matter what because it was bring your own food, bring your own booze. So we had coolers. We're going to a park. There's a little lake there you could fish in or swim in. And
but I'm just saying, they canceled the wedding. Did you really think somebody from the family was going to show up?
We didn't care about the wedding one way or the other. We were just there.
Right, just there to party.
Right, exactly, and do the reception and have a good time afterward. But, it's going to be like a 15-minute ceremony. Then they were going to be done with it, and it was going to be over with. But that was the thing. People were trying to find out what the hell went down. They never showed up. None of their family ever showed up. A couple of the stragglers showed up who heard about the party, so they kind of joined us. We didn't know them.
Right.
Just ended up being a big party.
Because you're partying in a park, and it's a word-of-mouth
right.
wedding. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly, but you go there for a wedding.
I mean, look, I get
There's no wedding.
It's not your wedding.
There's no explanation of the wedding. It makes sense like they got a car crash and they didn't make it.
Right.
You know what I mean? The bride died.
Stay positive.
I got it.
I don't think if you call off a wedding, I missed that part, like morning of, no offense, I don't think you owe people a reason.
No. Well,
you just get to go, it's off.
They can figure it out.
Well,
Yeah.
it was her dad that was at the gate telling people it was off.
Oh, God, that's awful.
Yes.
How did he sound? I mean, was he trying to be cool?
Guys, sorry, folks, the wedding's off. Wedding's off? Yeah, wedding's off.
And he doesn't sound that pissed. It was probably on her.
And then I went like, well, can we still go and cook our food? And because there's pavilions and they rent the pavilion.
Right.
So like you can't just go take a pavilion. We're like, well, the pavilion's still open to use? And he's like, well, yeah, we still rented the pavilions. And I'm like, what numbers are there? Because they're like 23B, they're all through the park. So we just went to our pavilion and started grilling our food. I mean, why not? What would you have done? What's the damnedest thing that's happened to you? 206-421-ROCK.
You're in the men's room. 99.9 KISW and KISW HD1 Seattle.
Our question, what's the damnedest thing that's happened to you? 206-421-ROCK. We head to Pennsylvania. On Saturday afternoon, a woman in Altoona, Pennsylvania was minding her own business. She got home and heard a voice coming from her spare bedroom. As she found a stranger sitting inside the room, drinking one of her Powerades from her fridge and holding her fedora.
I like your hat, and I need electrolytes.
Guy turned out to be a 27-year-old man named Adam Zurch, and he was so drunk that he fell over when she told him to leave. The woman eventually pushed him out of her house, but he did have one last request. He asked her if he could at least keep the fedora. She told him no. He was arrested for felony burglary and trespassing. He actually told the cops that he thought he was at his buddy's house. And he was not at his buddy's house. What is the damnedest thing that has happened to you? 206-421-ROCK.
Hello, John. Welcome to the men's room.
Hey, how you doing?
Hola. What's happening, John?
Amigos. Yeah, I was at an Oakland A's game, in Oakland, California, and I went to concession, got 2 hot chocolates, and the guy hit a home run, and I turned around and it just hit me. Everybody in the whole stadium was laughing but me.
Did you spill your hot chocolates?
Just nailed me, both of them. I dropped everything.
Where did it hit you?
Right in the chest, the head.
Did you get the ball?
Nope.
What? You don't get to keep the ball?
Some other kid was quicker than me. I had chocolate on me. It was hot.
Do you know? Do you know who hit the? Do you know who hit the home run?
No, the visiting team. It's probably Kansas City Royals or something.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, whatever he said.
Hey, it was George Brett.
Damn. You got hit.
You know what, man?
I couldn't grab it because our chocolate was so hot.
We had.
It's hard to catch a ball, like a home run ball, because, I mean, everybody goes crazy for him.
They absolutely do.
So, right, if it plunked that dude, I'd pick it up.
You were, Ted, you were on TV eating a hot dog at a sporting event.
Correct. I just relived that moment with some Sounders fans the other day.
You did?
Yeah.
Which is, like anything else.
What was it? ESPN, I believe?
It was. It was a national televised game. And it was like the Sounders' second or third season, so ESPN loved having them on.
Sure.
Like they're right. And I'm stuffing a free hot dog down my gullet.
Did they say
the
anything?
thing that made it best, when you watch this video clip, it's that you're just eating the hot dog.
Right. You can't find it, by the way. Everybody always emails me.
It's not a big deal. You're just eating a hot dog, but either you guys were cheering or they broke into like one of the scheduled cheers. And so Ted, not quite prepared for this, just takes the hot dog, shoves the rest up in his face.
Yeah,
and
it's simple.
starts singing
It's a call
along.
and repeat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The ECS is going to go Seattle, right? I sit in the north end. We go South.
Sure.
Right. But I tried. I was trying to get that last bite in.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's amazing because you've been on TV a lot more than most people I know. So there was New Day Northwest.
Yeah.
And fairly recently, we're invited down to go on with Ted. You've been on with Taryn, you've been on with Miggs, all this stuff. So we go down there, and they're playing, what is the game? It's kind of like Pictionary sort of, right? But you're drawing it on a big pad so that you can see from home, and it's supposed to be like the holiday edition. So all of the clues are holiday related. You draw a snowman, your partner has a snowman, whatever. I think it was a nutcracker that you were attempting to draw.
Correct.
And I know you did not do it on purpose, but it's us. It's the poor host of this show, and you're drawing it, and the whole time, we're looking like, it looks like he's going to draw a penis, but obviously at some point, it's going to stop looking like a penis. And when you're done drawing it, it just looked like a straight-up penis. And, I mean, even the host was like, it's a family show. I don't know. It's just such a weird, awkward moment.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how?
When I was 18 years old, I was working at a radio station, and this was like in the summertime. And we got tickets through. We were the home of the Pittsburgh Pirates on our radio station, so we got free tickets. This was like a Tuesday afternoon game, so I got like 4 or 5 tickets. So like nobody's going to use them.
Sure.
1:00 game in Pittsburgh on a Tuesday. Most people work, but we were off. It's a summertime and everything else, so we're going to go to this game. So we go to the game, and the Pirates are just getting their ass kicked. The Cincinnati Reds were wiping them up and down. I mean, it was like 6-0. But we had
It's almost like 11-1.
But it was only in the 3rd or 4th inning, right? So we had these seats and we were in the outfield, but we had, we had bleacher seats way in Three River Stadium, way in the back, you know what I mean? And nobody else is in our section. It's just 5 of us. So as the game goes on, we realize that every once in a while they're panning the actual camera to us out there because we were cheering and dancing and everything else at the beginning of the game. By the time they played a song, you know what I mean? They put us on the camera. Then the game started getting out of hand, and then we all decided we were going to act like we all fell asleep. So then we all open our mouths.
That's
right?
pretty funny.
And then they put us on the Jumbotron again, because they're getting their ass kicked. And everybody's just laughing.
Right.
Everyone laugh and all that stuff. So they keep panning to us all these different times. Then a downpour happens, all right? A downpour happens. And, I mean, it is just jumping. And so we decided we're not moving. We're just going to sit this thing out. Like, my buddy Brett went and got a bunch of beers. He comes back. Now we're dancing in the rain, and all this stuff. And then the Pirates come back. They come back and they win the game after the rain delay, which didn't seem that long, maybe an hour or so. We were drunk, whatever. But they came back and won the game, and now we are losing our minds. Like a ball's hit out there and a home run. One of my buddies goes down and grabs it. He gets the ball. We're holding the ball up, going nuts, whatever. We go home, and the next weekend they would run either during a rain delay or just like every weekend for whatever reason, this show called This Week in Baseball.
TWIB.
Oh, yeah,
This Week in Baseball just took all the highlights from that week of all the things that happened, you know what I mean? And they put them in like a half-hour highlight reel, and you get to watch all the stuff. So we're at home. There's 2 or 3 of us watching this who went to the game, and it was like the fans are dancing in Pittsburgh. And it's just us. There's nobody else around us.
Just
There's only
guys.
5 dudes in an entire empty, and we're losing our mind. And then they did a montage of us asleep in the rain, all this stuff, and it was just like it was the biggest deal ever. The problem was, like Ted was saying, you can't go tell someone you got to go see This Week in Baseball because it needed to be like a rain delay now or something like that for the show to air.
Right? The show came on, but you're right. Like specifically, if there was a rain delay, it cut to This Week in Baseball, and then like an hour long of San Diego Chicken.
Yeah, and you could so you could never predict when it would be on, but everyone's like, yeah, sure you were on This Week in Baseball because like ESPN at this point in time, they've been on the air for 10 years or 8 years.
Right.
They're not showing baseball games. They haven't reached that level. They're still showing like Australian rules at night and all this stuff. You know what I mean?
About that?
Yeah, exactly. But it was we thought that was the biggest deal in the world.
Honestly, with the pandemic, before baseball came back, they started running old episodes of This Week in Baseball.
Did they really?
Yeah, I found myself watching. But You're right. As a kid, we loved baseball. That show was the tops.
Yeah, it was like watching a highlight show. You know what I mean? Of all the great, replays of the week. Which
I made a sports highlight once, unintentional. Baltimore, before the Ravens became the Ravens, they had a Canadian Football League team, all right? The Baltimore Stallions. And they still got like 30,000 people go to the game. Mm-hmm. A guy I knew, he worked for the team. He could get me tickets. And so I would go to the games, whatever. But this one time he calls me and he says, listen, they're playing the Toronto Argonauts, okay? But one of their big fans that they always kind of support, the dude's in a wheelchair, but you can go down the field. Basically, you just push him around, help him out, help him get food, that kind of thing, right? And I'm like, no problem. It's like, but you're down on the field. Cool. So we're on the Argonaut sideline because that's his team. And the guy was really cool. Like, we had a really good time together. But there's a guy named Mark Pringle. He was our running back. And he breaks for this big run, right? Like, it's like this 90-yard run. And I get very excitable when I'm watching football. And I did not mean to do this, but I'm standing behind the guy's wheelchair. And I am there specifically also to keep him out of harm's way. Because, when these players come flying off the field, man, they are moving. So, anyway, this guy Pringle, he breaks. I just take off running, man. And I realize I'm running side by side. So he's on the sideline. I'm on the sideline. But I'm running on the out-of-bounds side, screaming, just go, go. Not really recognizing that I'm now this crazy fan. This guy keeps looking over at me. And I'm just screaming because I'm kind of already celebrating. And then he gets a touchdown. And I realize in that moment, like, oh, F, man, like you got to, because like I'm ready to high five. I'm like, I'm in the moment, but I'm like, I got to back off. And so I jog back up to the guy in the wheelchair and he's like, you can't leave me, man. I'm like, I'm so sorry. But so later in the Baltimore local broadcast, let's show the highlight from the game. My mother laughed at me probably for a month about that. Because you realize in the background, she's like, look at my dumb ass son. Just, you can see me screaming and running and jumping. And she's like, what was your job? I'm like, all right. When you see the running back go by, you see a guy in a wheelchair, yeah, I'm supposed to be watching.
Right.
And he just totally out of my mind.
And if you're a weird sports trivia nut, and whatever, and if you like football, it's kind of crazy. But I can't remember if it was like 95 or 96 or whatever it was. But, the Ravens hadn't got to Baltimore yet, so we're football starved. And the Stallions came into town, and they did really well. I mean, they had an incredible team.
Didn't they win a championship?
They won the Grey Cup. So statistically, what non-Canadian team has won the Canadian Football League championship?
That's the only one.
It's like 95 or 96. It's somewhere right in there, and it's the Baltimore Stallions. And I remember,
and you've never heard of
trying
them.
to get Grey Cup tickets, and they were sold out because Memorial Stadium held 42,000 people, but they sold out all the home games.
Sure.
So you couldn't get in there. So
that's why it's good to have a friend.
Went to a bar and threw down, man. Like, they won it all. We thought I called my friends, like, we won the Grey Cup. I'm like, what the is a Grey Cup?
The what?
We're the Canadian Football League champions. You live in Baltimore.
Yeah, when you say, hey, man, we won the Grey Cup. They're like, you have a hockey team? Like, no. That's the Stanley.
What's the damnedest thing that happened to you? 206-421-ROCK. Yeah, you couldn't get a ticket to those games.
You couldn't, but you're right. The problem is there's no big national celebration because the only people that cared were us. Mm-hmm. Hello, Jordan. Welcome to the men's room.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hola.
So one of the crazy things that happened to me, it was about 4 or 5 in the morning. Me and my coworker, he's a semi-truck driver, and I was just riding passenger with him. And I'm outside smoking a cigarette. He's finishing his paperwork in the office. Well, when he comes out, we load up in the truck, and we look back in the back. We looked on the floor, and his phone was out of his case, and his phone was missing. Well, we're looking around, and we see legs hanging out of the sleeper bed in the back of the truck. Mind you, it's Halloween. So my coworker Dennis thought I was playing a prank on him, and I thought he was playing a prank on me. He ended up punching the set of legs, and the fella jumped up. And he's trying to plead with us and everything. Give me a ride, give me a ride. We was like, he made him give us the phone, and we funneled him out. Well, we haul tires and axles for mobile homes, and he tried to snake his way into the tires and axles we had on the trailers, and we ended up calling the cops, and he took off. Now, here's the plot twist. Profile this. Was he black, white, Mexican, or Asian?
Where were you?
Rochester.
Rochester, New York?
Washington.
Oh, God. White.
Wrong.
What was the answer?
It was a Mexican fella.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know much about hoboing. I know I jumped on a train one point in time when I was on acid one night.
Hoboing.
Hoboing. Is that what it's called?
When you,
I haven't been hoboing in a while.
When you snake a ride for someone who they don't know you're snaking a ride?
I think that's stowaway.
Stowaway?
Yeah, that's stowaway.
I like hoboing better.
Hoboing.
Because I got a stick and I got a bag of my stuff over my shoulder, you know what I mean?
But I feel like if you're on one of those trains, even if they see you there, they don't care. Like a stowaway, they care that you're there. Hoboing, they're like, yeah.
Yeah, they don't care if anything falls off the back. They only care if they hit something with the front. I mean, honest to God, that's the way
That
the train
is very
that's
much
train
so.
living. You know what I mean? You could jump off a train, they don't care.
Oh, yeah. That's
but if
unusual.
you hit like a goat, they stop it. What is the damnedest thing that happened to you? 206-421-ROCK.
Hello, Shauna. Welcome to the men's room.
Hello.
Hola.
So I just got braces on yesterday, so I've got a little bit of a lisp, so deal with me. So 30 years ago, I'm 20, I was with my girlfriend in Greece. Her parents have a place in Greece and a place here in Washington. And do you remember those big fun islands? No hole in the middle. They're kind of a big flotation device.
Oh, yeah.
Is
Sure.
that probably the equivalent of now what people are getting on those big unicorns and stuff?
But bigger.
Okay.
Well, we took that out, me and my girlfriend. We're 20 and another girl. And we were out there floating, and we're like, hey, we're getting far from shore. Let's get off and swim in. Well, when we got off, it was windy. It became a big sail. And so it started taking us out to sea. And we climbed back on there, and let's try again. Same thing. Pretty soon, we can't see shore. I'm the strongest swimmer. So I'm like, I'm going in, guys. I'm going in. You know, I'd been scuba diving, so I could swim with currents and things. And so it takes me almost 4 hours to swim to shore.
I was going to say, if you can't see the shore, you're probably at least more than a few miles out.
Oh, it was a long ways. When I get back, I'm exhausted. Of course, I'm not by anywhere of my stuff. I don't speak Greek, so I can't have anybody help. I got to find my stuff. This was before cell phones. I want to call her parents and find my stuff. Takes me another hour to find my stuff and call her parents, and then they call the Coast Guard to go out and get them. By the time they found them, it took them 6 hours by boat
To get back?
to shore.
Where were they? Frickin'
Yeah.
Egypt? Did they go to Africa?
God, almost felt like it, she said. And then they were so mad, and she speaks Greek, but they never taught her how to swear. And he was swearing at her, and he pulls out a knife. And she's like scared. I mean, here's this guy screaming at her, pulls out a knife and just stabs Fun Island.
Okay.
All right.
Pretty aggressively.
Now, you said it took you 4 hours to swim back to shore.
Took me 4 hours.
How many times did you honestly think you're going to die?
A lot. I had to float quite a bit, and then I was like, am I floating in the right direction? Did I get disoriented? Am I swimming in the right direction?
Because you don't know, is a current taking me? All those things. We used to do a mile swim every year.
It was scary. And then it took me a long time to find my stuff, too.
In those but in those 4 hours, how much time passed before you could at least see the shore?
Probably, realistically, like 2.5, 3.
Okay, let me ask you about this phenomenon, because we used to do this before we would, to get your life-saving stuff so you could work at a pool. Mike, I know you know all about that, when you have to get registered. You have to do a couple things, at least we did. You had to do a mile swim, and then you had to do an hour tread, okay? I'm sure you swam 4 miles, which I can't even imagine. How hard was it for you to relearn how to walk when you got to shore? Because your legs are now 550 pounds apiece.
I had to lay there for a while. I had to get my bearings, and yeah, it felt like I was like mushing it. I mean, I was just all over the place in the sand. But I'm like, I got to find my stuff. I got to do this. But yeah, it took me at least, I would say, a day and a half.
Did you think that your friends might be dead?
Yes, because of the wind and everything. Yes, I did. I was yes.
Okay, now another question. All right, so we're all on this big fun island, which very fun. When you say, "Hey, man, I'm going to jump in the water and swim to shore," did everyone say, "Yeah, do it," or were they like, "You're going to die"?
Then they said, "I don't know, dude. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good idea." I'm like, "What else are we going to do?"
Right.
Her parents didn't know we had this out there. They didn't know where we were.
Well, yeah, you didn't know where you were.
You got to remember too. Okay, look. I'm working for the Coast Guard. I'm in the.
You're a Greek Coast Guard.
I'm a Greek Coast Guard member, right? And you call me up and you go, "Hey, we got a 40-year-old and two 50-year-olds out on a float somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea," and I go, "All right, we'll check on it." When you go, "Hey, we got three 20-year-olds floating away, three females," I'm like, "All right, we're gonna break out the chopper."
Right.
I think that your
helps.
age and your demographic got you out of there a little faster than I would have reacted. You're like, "Oh, we got three 20-year-olds in bikinis floating on a raft. Let's go."
And this is not Miles being silly. I was telling you about a year ago.
Serious.
Like 2 years ago, a woman got lost. All I remember, she was 19, and the people that had seen her wandering through the woods also pointed out that she was naked. Okay, and I want to say it was like Rainier or something like that, something reasonably local. And the number of volunteers that they had looking for her, the way they're spinning it on the news is there's been a huge outpouring of volunteers looking, for this woman. And I'm like, since I have been there, a lot of people have gotten lost in the woods, and you get your average 100 volunteers. You said it's a 19-year-old naked woman, and then you put her picture up of what she looked like, and they're like, "We have 2,000 volunteers."
Yeah, it's 13-year-old. You had 13-year-old kids. You couldn't get off an Xbox. They're out there combing the woods.
I'm telling my wife, "Hey, I'm gonna be a hero today." Everybody was looking for her.
Our question: what is the damnedest thing that has happened to you? 206-421-ROCK.
This podcast is brought to you by the Washington State Department of Health. When we think about the COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy in the Black community, let's remember, it didn't happen by chance. It's justified in history. But the will to change the narrative is strong today, and our people are lending their voices to the conversation. We're sharing our stories and the reasons that made us choose the vaccine so we can lead the way for others to make a well-informed choice too. To hear our stories, visit hereforuswa.org.